All right. Welcome, everyone. We will call this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Today is April 8th, 2025. Good evening, Carl. Welcome. Hey, Carl. Melissa, will you please take roll call?
Yes. Richard Core?
Here.
Melissa Denton?
Here.
Andy Cabrera?
Here.
Carl Hubner?
Here.
Denise Meyer? And also seated at the board table is Superintendent Bob Thompson and CFO Jeff Dowd.
Please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, board members, in your packets, you have some meeting minutes from our reorg meeting last week, or last meeting, I should say, on March 25th. So if you'll give that a look over, that would be great. I'll be looking for a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the March 25th reorg meeting.
So moved.
Any questions? All approved?
You need a second.
Oh,
Thank you. Thanks.
all right. Melissa, has anyone come forward for public comment?
We did not have anyone step forward tonight.
Okay. At this point, I'll invite Principal Bernard up for a presentation.
Good evening.
Oh, I realize we made an error.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. You can stay at the podium.
I'll make a motion to approve the March 25th, 2025 regular meeting minutes.
All approved? Thank you, Rich and Melissa. All right.
All right, here we go. So I have the pleasure of having the HMS highlights going to be shared. Yeah, okay, rewind. We're going to try this again. I have our crayon crew here, Mrs. Howard's fifth grade advisory team. They are going to come up and share some middle school highlights. I would also like to share that Mrs. Jennifer Howard is a recipient, or she received a nomination for New Hampshire Teacher of the Year, and she is going forward with that application process. We are so, so proud. So I would like to invite our crayon crew on up. So we have Chase Poirier, Julia Demers, and Mila Rogi. Did I get that right? Come on up.
We are the Crayon Crew, Mrs. Howard's advisor, and heading up the Crayon Initiative Service Project at HMS.
The Crayon Initiative is a donation of crayons to support children in children's hospitals and give them something to do with their brand new crayons that have been made by the Crayon Initiative and donated by students at different schools. So we also have a video that can explain all of this. So yeah.
It starts with opening the box and then top of the box, and then you get the smell of the crayon, and you don't have to explain to them what to do with this bowl. They just pick it up and they start coloring. Crayons seem to have that way with everybody, that it either takes them back to their childhood memory, or as a child they just don't have to use them. The idea for the crayon is to get them out of the restaurant with my kids, and they were coloring on the menu. So then as the supply chain guy We want to give restaurants and schools and individuals to give back their crayons to us, where we work with groups to do sorted, breaking them into colors, and then from there we melt them and create new crayons. We'll box them up in an 8-pack with 6 colors of the rainbow, but normally a pink and a brown color in an 8-pack box, and then another box gets donated back to children's hospitals.
What I learned about hospitalized kids with chronic illness, is that they want to play, they want to go to school, they want to have friends, they want to do their hair, they want to paint their nails, they want to be a superhero, just like a normally developing child. They're no different. Creativity in play is so very important because they're in an environment that is abnormal. So when you give them the tools to sit down and really express what they're thinking and what they're feeling and what they're experiencing, it's very powerful.
It means everything to them to actually have their own package crayons with tips on them. Most of the patients take our crayons home with them because it's the one good memory of that hospital stay and remember that it brought them happiness. But there's an unlimited supply of crayons coming in, and so if we can keep taking those crayons and making new ones, we can make sure that every children's hospital gets the art supplies that they need and the resources that they need for these crayons.
To date, we have collected 111 pounds of crayons, with a goal of 200 pounds by the end of the school year. The crayon bin in the lobby is weighed every single Friday in the morning. Some Crayon Initiative facts and info. Collection tubs are canisters being reused from the cafeteria, some mayo and salad dressing. Collected crayons are being sorted by students who visit our OT room, which is near Mrs. Johnson's room. The students are sorting the crayons by color hues, blues, reds, and etc. Collection will end at the close of school. At that time, the crayons will be brought to the Crayon Initiative partner, Staples, to be sent to California for free.
HMS celebrated National School Breakfast Week, March 3rd through the 7th. On Monday, HMS hosted Senator Maggie Hassan, who was invited to tour the school by New Hampshire Hunger Solutions to showcase the fantastic work HMS does to combat food insecurity. We also had a breakfast tasting by our CAF services. On Tuesday, 8th grade students took a field trip to Hannaford to buy breakfast items for our Saltbox pantry. They used the funds generated by the Candy Cane fundraiser in December. Wednesday, Mrs. Wolf's 8th grade flex visited HCS Student Council to kick off the cereal box drive for both schools. Thursday, we had a potluck breakfast for staff. Thank you to everyone in our school community that donated items for the brunch. Thank you to Ms. Barbic for coordinating this fantastic week of celebrating breakfast.
On March 14th and March 15th, HMS had the pleasure of presenting the incredible production of Seussical Jr. to our school community. After months of hard work, rehearsals, and dedication, our students brought to life the magical world of Dr. Seuss, featuring the beloved characters of Horton the Elephant. A special thanks goes out to Mr. Branscombe, Mr. Robbins, Miss Downey, Miss LaPlante, Miss Delapenna, and all of our dedicated staff and volunteers who supported the students.
Oh gosh, I don't need that. Oopsie doopsie. On March 21st, the 8th grade class celebrated the Screamy Awards. 8th graders spent months creating a
and producing their own scary movie trailers as part of a unit on suspense techniques. We welcomed our school community through the red carpet for this glorious award ceremony. There were movie, snacks, and raffle prizes, and all the money went to the American Heart Association and the National Blood Clot Alliance. The crowd got to vote with their favorite trailers in categories such as scariest and most suspenseful. It was a night to truly remember. Thank you to Ms. BW and the 8th grade team for this fantastic evening. Also taking place recently was the Wonderland of Literacy Night. Students have been doing this since January. It turned out to be a huge hit. Students with higher points in the entire week, they earned points by doing assignments posted on their Winter Wonderland Google Classroom. And by the amount of points they got invited to a pop-up party at the end of the following week. The pop-up party they celebrated all the students with the highest points, and they would choose the highest point winner for the week and give them a Pop-It snowflake. Let's see, what else do we have here? We celebrated our learning with a fantastic community event on March 27th. It was a huge hit. We had a lot of stuff going on. We had bingo for books with HCS staff and students that they were invited to. And the library hosted an annual book fair. We had a book swap station. We had all these different stations. Most of them had to do with books. The goal was to get you leaving with more books than you could carry. So the book swap and all this wonderful stuff, it really helped people, readers, influence other people to keep reading. And we had some pop-up presentations at the Cozy Corner. I know Mrs. Howard and me did a Greek prefixes board in the 5th grade hallway, where you could stick up a word that included one of the Greek prefixes, and people really liked that. The school community was free to roam the halls, participate in learning activities, and view our doors that were decorated in the theme of empathy to celebrate our One School, One Book program. A big shout out to Mrs. Mayu and Mrs. Bonell for creating this opportunity for our students and all the staff and volunteers for making this night happen.
On April 25th, guest speaker Lieutenant Kinsman of Portsmouth Police Department will speak to 7th and 8th graders on internet safety.
On April 25th, our Quarter 3 Hawk Awards will be happening.
May 12th through the 16th, Mental Health Awareness Week.
On May 22nd, our students will participate in the Miler Run.
Eventually, we will be doing our spring field trip soon. Not to say the spring field trips. 8th grade will be going to DC. 7th grade will take flight. 6th grade will do the Boston Freedom Trail, and 5th grade will go to the Seacoast Science Center.
So our 8th grade graduation is also set for June 19th. Our 8th grader have really showed what it means to be a Hawk. I know everyone here is just very proud to be in this middle school, so congratulations to them.
Any questions for our crayon crew?
No questions. I'll just say how proud I am of all of you for getting up there and speaking for a really long time. I know that's not easy. You had a lot of information to share, so I really appreciate it. And my feedback is I love this. I'm in full support of kids running the school highlights. So this was awesome, and I hope this continues.
Great job, guys.
Thank you.
And I know everyone has dinner times and homework and all that good stuff, so. Thank you all for coming. You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, we're good. We're trying. We're good. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Nice job. Well done.
Okay. Moving on to the new math curriculum with Nicole Tomaselli. Everyone got these.
Okay, thank you, everyone. You can advance this. So this is the presentation I showed you last week. This is a continuation of our discussion on our math pilot and ultimately our curriculum program decision. Tonight I'll be asking the board to recommend that we move this to, I'd like to recommend to the board that we move this to second read so that we can kind of expedite this process a little bit. We have some professional development training we'd like to do on May 23rd. So I'll ask Joe to advance the slides. Keep going. These are the 3 programs that we looked at. Keep going. Which I discussed in detail last week. These are our committee members and the number of total students involved. Go ahead. This was the rubric we used to evaluate the programs. I expanded on this a little bit not last week, at our last school board meeting. We can advance through. These are some of our math data points. Go ahead. And more of our math data points over time. These are all things that I felt were important to present last session to kind of set the stage for why we might need to rethink some of our instructional practices around math and why we are not looking to secure a 6-year contract. Our math understandings and math learning is constantly evolving, and so we are learning more about this read, draw, write model that Eureka Squared champions. It involves a lot of drawing, math stories, composing and decomposing numbers. This is a little slide that shows you the difference between concrete, pictorial, and abstract learning. In the past, some math curriculums have been criticized heavily for going from concrete directly to abstract, skipping the pictorial stage, or conversely, going from concrete to pictorial and never getting to abstract. But it's very important for all learners to progress through all stages of this. Knowing what we know now about the science of reading, I think you'll find in the next few years a similar methodology coming out for mathematics learning. These are some quotes from our pilot teachers, which I read to you last meeting. And last meeting, I handed out these studies from Eureka to talk about their methodology. And also some of the gains that we are seeing in Eureka for efficacy particularly among special ed students and subgroups. All right, so we kind of left off talking about instructional coherence. So instructional coherence is something we're forever trying to get to, where we align our materials with the standards, with our instructional practices, with our assessments. And you asked some very pointed questions at the last meeting around intervention and Tier 1 products. And what if our Tier 1 product is going at a certain pace, but our intervention's going at a different pace? So I did some homework in this area, and I've laid out these 2 kind of slides because it will look different at Central School versus the middle school. At Central School with Eureka Squared, we will be using an iReady diagnostic 3 times a year. The wonderful thing about that diagnostic is that we get a prerequisite skill report specific to math. So any teacher can run the prerequisite skill report and see where there are missing holes in the child's understanding. And that information is able to be mapped to any curriculum in Tier 1, any core curriculum. Our teachers will need to learn how to do that. Go ahead, Carl.
Can you just quickly explain what Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 is?
Oh, sure. Tier 1 instruction is when you look at a child's schedule and you see math for 60 minutes. That is implied all of the students stay in the homeroom for that math instruction for 60 minutes. That is for all children. Tier 2 is where we do a little bit more targeted small group instruction, personalized to what the kids need. Tier 3 might be if they have math-specific learning goals, if they're on an IEP, or if they're approaching maybe needing an IEP. If we're concerned, we might put them in a Tier 3 group for a period until they're tested. But the higher the tier, the more refined and smaller group and targeted specific skills. But Tier 1 is for all. So it's important that our Tier 2 and Tier 3 tools are in alignment with what they're getting in Tier 1, but also flexible enough to meet their needs. So this is where Eureka Squared offers a product called Math Catalyst for Tier 2 and Tier 3. It's their intervention tool. It was not part of our pilot, but it will be part of our purchase. The good news is that we will still have access to that prerequisite skill report in iReady, and then we'll be able to dose those specific targeted lessons, because sometimes the missing pieces aren't what's currently being taught in the class. So sometimes Tier 2 and Tier 3 lessons have lagging skills that need to be retaught until kids get competent. At the middle school, it's going to be much more cohesive because we'll be using Ready Math as the Tier 1 curriculum. So Ready Math in Tier 1 syncs beautifully, is already mapped to the Tier 2 product, which our kids already are using. It's MyPath, and then Teacher Toolbox. And we'll expand that into Tier 3. So I just wanted to show you how the intervention pieces will work. And this slide kind of lays out a little bit more of the difference between intervention and also extensions in both products, so that we can really personalize the math instruction and accelerate the children who need it and give them more hands-on and math tasks and kind of exciting ways to look at math, and then also intervene and do remediation for kids who need it. We didn't talk a lot about Ready Math the last meeting, so I just wanted to lay this out for you. This is the kind of approach that Ready Math uses. They have a 5-day approach for every unit. 1 day is intended for exploration and connecting to prior skills. 2 to 3 days are this development stage, which is when the children will engage in grade level instruction. And then there's a day for refinement at the end, which is where the teachers can really differentiate. So our middle school teachers have been using this method this spring during the pilot, and they are really loving the time that they have to teach and reteach and refine every single unit. So even though the pace is quick, they are finding it's giving them more opportunities to revisit concepts. And this is the slide you've probably all been waiting for. This is the financial breakdown for our 3-year agreements. So in some cases, we try to negotiate 6 years, but again, with math and given the current budget situation, we're just looking at a 3-year agreement. I did cross-check our curriculum review cycle, and we will not be overlapping with an ELA purchase in 3 years. There's a 1-year difference, so I feel really good about that. But if you look at this vertically, if you look at it vertically on the left, you'll see Central School. There's about 415 children coming into next year, and it fluctuates given the enrollment. But you can see the total cost with digital access and student work texts and teacher materials is about $66,000. That's for 3 years. At the middle school, the same digital access and the work texts, as well as algebra seats, is about $29,000. It's quite a significant difference in price. Keep in mind we have more students at Central, and the manipulative kits are expensive. Eureka is a more expensive product, but the formative skills it teaches and the manipulative kits, that's what we're paying for. On the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see we're at a column called blended funding. So my strategy with this is going to be to purchase some of these materials this year so that we can train our teachers. So the PD and the manipulative kits will be purchased with money from either this current budget or this current Title IV cycle or our current Title II funding. That way, the remainder of the cost can come out of the next year's operating budget. So at the bottom right-hand side, you can see our all-in cost for 3 years is around $96,000. I expect to use about $10,000 in blended funding, and the budget impact will be $86,000. Are there any questions I could answer? Yes, Mr. Poor.
I thought that we were doing Eureka K to 8.
No, we are doing Eureka K4 and Ready Math 5 through 8.
Any reason not to have one program for the district?
That was going to be my question as well.
I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
I know it's more expensive, but it's, in my experience, a far more robust.
Yeah, I do
program.
think there is potential in 3 years to look at Eureka. I don't know that it would be fair to phase it in all at once K8. I feel like the students that are K4, when they move up, we should possibly look at phasing it in as those students move up, but it is such a different approach to teaching math that I don't know if it would be appropriate to put it in front of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders after not having had that from kindergarten up through elementary.
And iReady is more language heavy versus Eureka is more visual. So if you're going to have, in my experience, so if you're going to have a level that's going to do iReady middle schools, they're going to have the reading skills to be able to help them. Something wrong? Actually,
So I actually wasn't done, but.
go ahead, sir. You go.
I mean, I personally don't agree with that. I think that's just kind of kicking the can down the road. At some point, we're going to have to put it in front of kids who haven't been taught that way before. I feel like if we're thinking that at some point we might go with Eureka K to 8, then we should explore going K to 8 rather than getting in another curriculum that we know we are probably not going to keep 3 years from now. And Ready Math it's back on my path, it's a lot of screen time.
So the MyPath we recommend 25 minutes a week per discipline, so 25 math, 25 language arts. However, it's not a requirement, it's an optional suggestion for children who need intervention. Our teachers are very familiar with iReady and the teacher toolbox. We purchased it for the whole district K-8 with COVID funds, and we've been using it largely as an intervention, but what we've found is that it's very easy to use those teacher toolbox lessons in small groups and prescribe the learning. And so given the pocket that we have right now at the middle school of students, this product, I think, will be easy for our teachers to continue to use and develop and utilize that 5-day kind of methodology they have. Having said that, I do appreciate the Eureka Squared K-8. I think that would be amazing. This budget cycle will not support that.
I think that if that is something that we really want to consider, we need to look at things and find a way to make that happen.
Do we know what the costing difference would be if we did Eureka for the 5 through 8, like 29,000 versus?
I don't know offhand. I would have to price it out. It's probably close to $54 per student per year. And that would be through grade 8, and algebra has its own costing tier. It's not the same as the K-8 product, so the pricing might be a little higher in algebra. We do have a large cohort coming into 8th grade next year, and so I've budgeted for more algebra seats in case we have 2 sections. We have 112 children coming into 8th grade, but averaging that out over the next few years, I was able to get a 3-year arrangement with Ready Math that we'll pay for this year. But
Yeah, so the quick math is somewhere, it's going to be around 54,000 versus the 29,000.
yeah, you'd be looking at, I would say at least a $30,000 increase, maybe $40,000 increase. When you add in manipulatives.
Oh, yeah, there'd be manipulative kits too.
Yeah, so I know in my day job, we limited manipulative purchase at the secondary level.
Oh,
And
you
we
did? Okay.
concentrated most of our manipulative purchases at the lower level to save some money that way. I'm happy to say let's move this to second read, but I would still like to explore what this looks like.
Yeah, like what the costing is,
I would
first
agree,
look
just
at it.
Because
Agreed.
the all-in cost,
Okay.
If you say, Rich, this is what I think we should have, I'm coming to you with Ready Math because I know the budget's tight. I think that we need to try to figure it out, at least do our due diligence.
I do have quotes from them. I did get quotes K through 8 plus algebra, but the number's really high. And we're familiar with Ready Math. And the other thing I would just say is that our middle school math teachers are specialists. They teach math all day. And many of them have written homegrown lessons. They love the scope and sequence with Ready Math, and they like the assessments. They like the flexibility of the use of manipulatives occasionally, but it's not a requirement. They're familiar with the intervention. They think they can make it really work. I'm happy we're looking at products that are highly aligned with Ed Reports and the What Works Clearinghouse. I do understand your philosophy, though, of the deeper learning. I think that would be wonderful long-term if we could land there. I'm just not sure this is the right time for that type of purchase.
Does fifth grade have dedicated math teachers?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What are they using at the middle school right now?
Big Ideas. We've been with Big Ideas for, I would say, at least 6 years before I came here. And the struggle we've had a number of struggles with Big Ideas over the years. My biggest issue is the standards alignment. Our teachers are forever supplementing and rewriting things because there are major standards deficiencies in the program. And then we've also had a lot of shipping issues with them where we're not getting materials. Some of your children haven't got materials for Big Ideas until November, which is incredibly frustrating since we paid the bill 6 years ago, or 3 years ago. So I'm not interested in continuing with them.
from an educational continuity perspective, are we confident in the fact that by the time you leave fourth grade, if you've been with Eureka K through 4 and you move to fifth grade, that the things that are being taught in Eureka align with the things that you should be prepared for in fifth grade?
Yeah, I do think Ready in general, Ready products, they are a gold standard when it comes to alignment of standards. I would say that they instructionally are more dedicated to the pace and their scope and sequence than the depth of knowledge. So if anything, Ready Math is going to catch in those prerequisite skills reports pieces that maybe didn't get taught or are missing or weren't later in the year, maybe didn't get covered in as much depth. The prerequisite skills reports are very detailed reports and can tell the current teacher what was missed or not fully understood in previous years. And so I would never want to eliminate the iReady diagnostic, but their lessons, the toolbox is actually pulled from, the math curriculum is actually pulled from those toolbox lessons. It's a compilation of toolbox. So I do feel good about doing it in that direction. Eureka Squared leads into Ready Math. I think that will be fine. I would not want to go in the other direction.
And let's say money is no object, and we were moving forward with Eureka Squared K to 8. In your opinion, is there better continuity in doing that?
Yes and no. If money is no object, we would rewrite the schedule and get our class sizes to 14 kids, and we would have 3 math teachers, and we would have very small groups, and they would have at least 60 minutes for math. So given the schedule at our middle school and our class sizes, I just don't know if it's the right product to hand to our middle school math teachers with a 38 to 40 minute block. It's just, they're going to be so frustrated. Our current fifth grade teacher actually did pilot Eureka this year and had a lot of frustration during that pilot because Eureka is designed to be 60 minutes or more of math instruction. It is very hard for a teacher to whittle out, well, what's not important for me to do?
What do I leave out?
What do I leave out? I only have 38 minutes. How am I doing this? So
that's helpful.
it's a tricky situation. We all want the absolute best for all the kids, but unfortunately, the money does play out, and the time also plays out. And the way the Ready Math lessons are, you can easily figure out which components are essential and what are not essential.
So I'm going to give Amy a heart attack, but if we went to Eureka, that might require a change in middle school scheduling in order to use it effectively.
Did we talk about changing the schedule? I feel like at an earlier meeting we talked about that.
We did talk about changing the schedule, yeah.
Would the math block be longer?
If the new proposed schedule were able to be implemented, the content areas would all be longer, and the UAs would be 45 minutes, and the core classes would be 60. There's a handful of reasons that that's not going to happen, as I understand it, next year. And some of that is due to our default budget.
Okay. At this point, I'll make a motion to move this to second reading, I guess with the caveat that you do come back at least with the number of what it would look like if we used Eureka Squared K-8.
Can I add one piece to that?
Absolutely.
And then just a description of the reasons why we can't move to that schedule.
Right now.
Or a schedule that at least allows for a little bit more instructional time. Because 38, that's insanity. That's 30 minutes of teaching time max. I feel bad for the teachers.
Okay. Any other questions?
Second. I don't even know what we, yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All approved?
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Okay, moving on to the HMS Student Behavior Supports Update. Amy Bernard.
Okay, so I know that this is a topic that is near and dear to our hearts. I know this is a hot topic. Coming in July, when I was first hired, and I was able to kind of deep dive into what was going on at the middle school, and then also being a community member myself and understanding what the school had been through, I learned that there was a lot of trauma. There was a lot of trauma in our staff, a lot of trauma in our community. And I have to say, I am so proud to stand before you and share the work that we have done as a team to address behavior at the middle school and begin to make some positive change here. I want to say that this type of change doesn't happen overnight. We don't fix all problems, but I do feel that our team has done some really great work. I'm inspired by the people that work here, and I am so proud to be a part of the team. So with that, our philosophy. So the Hampstead School District's mission is to provide challenging experiences that prepare our students for a changing world, right? But that's not just academics. It is also socially and emotionally. So our discipline or our conduct philosophy is rooted in restorative justice, and that means repairing harm and fostering community, helping students really understand the impact of their actions and learn from their mistakes so that they can be productive members of a society. Just a few fun pictures there from this school year. Hawk Awards, our musical, one of our pop-up parties, our LCA, and our Hawk House. On the bottom left, we have some collaborations with the Central School, and of course, our Senator Maggie Hassan visit, talking about what our community does to combat food insecurity. Some really proud moments here this year. So when I take a look at what are some of the major trends in student behavior in our building. I see them in two categories. I see one being ultimately work avoidance. And so some of the infractions that fall under this, in my mind, are electronic device infractions, failure to comply, disruption in class. The other side of this that I see a lot of is what I would call peer conflict. And what I mean by that is just people being unkind to one another, unprivileged physical contact. I want to say, coming from a high school where I witnessed fights, assaults, I'm not seeing that here. What I'm seeing is silly middle school behavior where people touch each other, right? They push each other, they act silly. Sometimes they hit each other a little bit harder than they should. I see some shaking heads here. You know what I'm talking about. But I haven't really seen any fights here, and I'm proud of that. And of course, we do have some bullying and harassment. And so obviously, those are like a focus for us. I have to say, I'm really proud to say, there's not been, and somebody needs to knock on some wood for me, please, one incident of vaping or drugs at all this year. So I wish that there was a crowd so we could just cheer for that, but I'll move forward. So the discipline data for this year, so we have 399 referrals for the school year so far. That's a large number, and I'm working to reduce that. When I look at breaking that down, and you're going to look at some of these numbers and say, well, Amy, you have 400 referrals, and these are small numbers, but I'll explain. One of that major areas is unprivileged physical contact. Another, I would say, is peer conflict. So we had 28 incidences of unprivileged physical contact, 21 incidences of peer conflict, 16 incidences of electronic device infractions. But really, this data that I'm pulling for you all, I want you to understand, we just implemented the PowerSchool plugin in March. And when I say March, I'm talking the 12th of March. So a lot of this data, we're just now starting to really be able to sift through. Yes?
So is this data from March, or are you tracking it somewhere else?
So we're able to track the data from the school year, but we don't have really as much information, because we weren't pulling it in categories that is recognized by the PowerSchool plugin, and because, quite honestly, a lot of the way that we characterize discipline was not refined enough. So we didn't have subtypes of discipline that really gave us information. So for example here, you can see there's inappropriate student behavior, 220 incidences of that. When you say inappropriate student behavior, I mean, that describes middle school, does it not? That tells us nothing about what's actually happening, right? So we created all new categories so we can really deep dive and kind of understand what is going on with our kids so we can help fix it. So I just took a couple of screenshots on the bottom for you all so you can see. So at the bottom here we have discipline logs, and that's actually by grade level. So out of the 399 referrals for the school year thus far, 117 have been from the 5th grade class, 43 from the 6th grade class. Just a reminder that 6th grade has 67 students as opposed to 5th grade that has, I think, roughly 83. 103 from the 7th grade class, that's interesting because they have like 111 or 112 students, and 135 from 8th grade. So that is telling in itself. On the other side now, and I'll talk about this more in a little bit, but now we have the ability for our teachers to log interventions into PowerSchool. These can be positive or things that they've done constructive in the classroom. So this is really helpful in us really understanding from an administration level what teachers are doing in terms of Tier 1 support, and also when they're reaching out even about positive interventions and reaching out to parents.
So just to clarify.
Yeah.
So the roughly 400 right up to 390, whatever it was, is from August till now. And then from March 12th, you have additional categories that you're going to move forward.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So we have made improvements in the reporting process and the access to reporting. So we know that the district leadership team created the online reporting system for suspected bullying that anyone in our community can use, and that's posted right on our website under the parent section. I have created a new internal bullying report and investigation checklist. We call it the BRIC. This is online, and we fill this out as we are doing our investigation process. We have a new student statement process that's new as of this year. It's really important that every student that comes to the office has due process. So I want students to be able to tell us their side of the story. And so every student that comes in has the ability to write a statement for us. We also now have the new online referral system for staff, which is quick and easy, and they're using it with excitement, really, truly.
So,
do you want me to go back?
Yeah, can you go back one
sure
slide?
thing.
So with the online reporting system for suspected bullying, being that bullying exists at the middle school, we know it does. How frequently is that being used? Has it been used at all? Are people accessing it?
Here you go, look it. It's like I knew you were going to say that. So we have had only 10 submitted for the online referrals from our community and staff. So this year, we have enhanced our staff training on recognizing signs of bullying and the reporting process. We've done in-person training in addition to the online training, and we've had follow-up discussions at staff meetings. And as I said, our online referral system, we've had 10 suspected incidences reported. We've only had 2 substantiated incidences of bullying this year and 3 full investigations. On the other side, I think it's really important to note that we are really working on prevention here at the middle school and also supporting our victims. So, we started by educating our students with the See Something, Say Something. Day one, first opportunity that I had when I stood in front of the students, I actually kept the 8th grade after our full school assembly, and this was my message to them, is no more here in Hampstead. We need to be a community. We need to care for one another. If we see something, we need to say something. We are educating our students about the dangers of social media. We had a guest presenter, and we're going to have another one coming up. And we know cyberbullying is a thing, right? And we know that it's easy to hide behind a screen. And so I think it's really important, especially as our students get older, that we make this a focus and we teach them about how to behave appropriately in social media. We're really working on fostering a positive school culture with, additional groups such as the Leadership Council of Athletics that's supporting all school initiatives. We also have a wraparound team. We meet weekly. It is comprised of administration, school counseling, our social worker, our SRO, our school nurse, our school psychologist, and our behavior specialist. And we talk about students that are struggling, students that need support, how we can support our students in general as a school. And it's really a great time for us all to get on the same page and for us to kind of know what's going on in the school. This has been a really great addition this year. We have school counseling, student support services, and small group pullouts for students. We have like a girls' leadership group. We have our Sunshine Squad with our 5th graders, really trying to develop a sense of community. We put in protective measures for victims that might include, changing classes, making sure that, we keep students away from one another, that students receive regular check-ins with school counseling, various different things like that. We also, as a school, went through a trusted adult exercise. So in every advisory, we had our teachers talk to our students about what it means to be a trusted adult, and then our students filled out the survey and listed 1 to 3 adults that they felt comfortable going to. We have utilized this list several times already when we needed to see where students were connected, how we could support students, and so this has been really valuable. And we're going to take this one step further and do trusted peer surveys too, so that we can see where students have connections and try to utilize those to help support students. Restorative practice is alive and well at the middle school. All of our staff have been trained in restorative practices using the book study here. That was before I came here. We instituted a student reflection process. I'll describe that in a little bit. I have a unique ability to connect students with older student mentors and adult mentors at Pinkerton with my connections. So I have actually brought in coaches from Pinkerton and different student leaders to connect with students and form positive role models to help give them something to look at in as an example. Also, we really utilize community service both in the Tier 1 and Tier 2 support. So by Tier 1, I mean we have school-wide community service projects, right? We just talked about one with our Crayon initiative, and we're involving all students in that. And then also by Tier 2 is sometimes in a form of a consequence or in a form of repairing the harm, we may use community service as a part of that process. You know, so if a student damages a scoreboard, when hitting, with a basketball or something, then, and that's worth a certain amount of money, then they may spend a little bit of time, helping facilities around campus to earn that back. So I know I've spoke about this before, but we now have our Tier 2 support room. We call that the WIN room, the What I Need room. This room exists for both academic and behavioral supports. It is a work in progress, and I think we're going to really grow this to be not just a room, but a program. And I'm really excited about where this can go. But in this WIN room, if a student is placed in here for a behavioral consequence, a personalized student plan is developed. So we look at the student, we talk about the needs of the student with the support team, whether that's school counseling, social worker, whoever it might be, case coordinator, and we develop a half an hour plan. I'll show you guys in a minute what this looks like. This will include some type of reflection. This could be an empathy or accountability project. It could be a research project, and what I mean by that is, for example, I had a student tell somebody to go die, so therefore they did a suicide prevention project in the WIN room. It could be an apology or reflection, so there will be some sort of reflection that they will do in there. They will have time with school counseling or another support service. They may do community service. I might actually pull them out, and we might do it together. So I've cleaned some windows with some students before. And at the end of the day, they will present their reflection to a small team. So it will probably include a school counselor, myself, or Ms. Joseph, or potentially a case coordinator, and they're going to tell us what they learned about the project that they did. And here is an example of a schedule. So we do map it out, and I share this with parents, and I tell them what this day is going to be. So no longer do we have students sitting in the office. That to me is a problem. I saw that day one. We can't have students in a place where other kids are walking around, they're observing and listening to confidential conversations, where they're taking a break from their school day. This is not a reward. This is something that we should use to educate and to hold them accountable in a positive way. So we scheduled them out a half an hour each, and there's always time for them to check in with their support, whether it's school counseling, social work, or whatever. Maybe if it's a special ed student, there'll be time for them to work with their case coordinator, so they'll get some work done, they'll work on their project, and then they'll present their reflection at the end of the day. So that's just a typical day. The picture here is our WIN room, you can see there's different sections or areas. So we kind of chunk them out based on the services that they're receiving. So we may have a small flex group in there, or we may have a student that is assigned to this WIN room because they were absent for a week and they're making up some work. Or we may have a student assigned for behavioral support. And so they'll be in different sections. So now I'm going to move on to the plugin, because as of the middle of March, we were able to get this up and running. So I'm so excited to share this with you. I'm geeking out on it daily, and I use my jazz hands with my staff all the time. There's just so much. There's so much greatness in this. This behavior plugin allows us to have a quick and easy referral process for students. It also gives us transparency. So one of the things from my staff was that they weren't getting follow-up from administration with respect to discipline referrals. Now they can see where we are in the process because they have the ability to look at the log entry. They look at what administration is doing, what the consequences are, and we're all on the same page. We have a behavior dashboard. This provides real-time data analysis that drives our school MTSS committee along with our grade level team MTSs. So we're now that we're getting this data, and again, this is a work in progress and really it just started, but now we can sort of deep dive into what are the issues and how can we attack them head on. This also allows for technology tools to enhance communication between home and school. We now have the ability to upload letters. Letters can be positive in nature. So if a student does something really great, a teacher can send a letter through PowerSchool. We can also send attendance letters through PowerSchool. We can send suspension letters through PowerSchool. So this just allows for one more piece of communication with our community. And before I move on, I also need to thank Joe Dion and the tech department for their work on this. Without them, this just wouldn't even be possible. And there's just so many benefits to this plugin. So I know this is kind of hard to see, but when I pull up my behavior dashboard, this is what I see. I'm really proud of the top left, and I want you all to look at this. So the top left here is the average logs per day in session per month. So you see when we started at school in September, there were 3.9 referrals a day. That's a lot for a population of 355. A lot. And we have moved down steadily from there. February is a little bit of an outlier there, but 2.81 in January. Now we can see a little uptick in March, but what I want to share with you is that's when we instituted the plugin, right? So that tells you that my staff is using this plugin, and they're also using it for interventions, both positive and constructive in the classroom, which is why it's gone up a little bit, and I don't have an issue with that. What I'm seeing is a steady decline, and I think that shows that what we're doing is working. In addition, we can see that we have just started being able to pull data on location and time of day. I think this is going to be really telling for us going forward. So you can see like that up in location, we had no location because we had just started using this. So now we're able to isolate. Do we have a lot of bus incidences in 5th grade, right? Is it coming in the classroom? Is it at recess? In addition, time of day, this could be really beneficial when we look at an individual student. And I'm going to show you what a student's dashboard will look like in a minute. And then you can see the subtype, and you can see the different types of logs that we have. And the fact that inappropriate behavior has 220, again, doesn't really tell us anything. So I'm really excited. In fact, I can't wait to remove that subtype altogether, but I want to wait till after this year to do that. So this is another piece of data I'm just sharing with you. I like to share this with the teams in terms of like percentages, right? So, our 6th grade has had 43 discipline referrals for the year, which represent 10% of the overall discipline referrals. So again, it's data. We can pull all sorts of data, and we're identifying what type of data is valuable in the MTSS team. So that's a work in progress. And at the bottom, I showed you that already. That's by year, right? So those are the logs that we've had per grade level by year, and then the interventions that are starting to be implemented and put in there.
Can you just explain
Yeah.
quickly what a discipline referral is, or like what an example of that might be?
So a discipline referral that would go to administration is something that a teacher feels like is beyond a classroom management issue. So it might be some type of peer conflict that is beyond something that a teacher would address in the classroom. Or it could be a disrespect to the teacher that would be beyond something that they were addressed in the classroom, and then that would go to administration. Versus intervention, which might be a conversation, right? Like maybe, somebody was distracted and, I don't know, banging a pencil over and over and again, and a teacher went and spoke to the student and redirected them and wanted to just note that as an intervention. That would be something handled within the classroom. So this is an example of what I might see with an individual student. I think this one is really interesting as well. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Right now, since the 12th. Because there was no intervention. I created it. Yeah. It wasn't even not being tracked. It was not even available. There was no inputting of anything online before the Power School plugin. So teachers could not put any type of things online at all. And then I created a section called interventions for our teachers to be able to log their own things, which is really powerful for us as administrators, because then I can see the child in the totality, right? So I can see that you have handled something in science class, and then you have handled something in math class, and we can kind of see. And so when I have conversations with parents, and I can say, this is happening across the board, that type of thing. Yeah.
But then when you start issuing consequences or interventions, that will also become part of that number?
Those consequences are admin actions, and they're in the log entry itself. So that's separate. That's that's in the log entry. It's not another thing. Yeah.
So basically the interventions are, you have a student that's getting away with little stuff in multiple different classrooms. It will then show up in the multiple different classrooms, which then might become an administrative.
Only if the teacher refers them to administration will it be a discipline referral. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I am open to suggestions and to looking at how we can tweak this for our community. One suggestion actually given to me this week was to classify them positive versus constructive. So we may look at doing that next year. At this point, I want to get the teachers used to utilizing this tool and starting to understand how to use it. And we've made the process really simple. But I think that it is worth that too, because I think the further class divisions we have, the more information we can have. That is correct, yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be good for you to look at it, play with it, go into the summer, rethink it, and then if you can come back and kind of explain what the iteration going in next year will be helpful.
Absolutely.
What you're going to define as the behaviors versus what you think interventions are. Do you know what I mean? It's like a school, so your
Yes.
school norms of this is what that is.
Not for the kids, because this is really if that's
With the
what you-
staff.
But with
So
the
they
staff,
know what
yes.
they're reporting.
Yep. And I will be providing training at each staff meeting too as updates. In terms of when the staff inputs a discipline referral, I ask them to classify it as a conduct referral and nothing else, so that we can consistently classify the discipline out of the office, so that that's done with fidelity.
And I think if we just continue with the presentation, you'll see, because some of these questions I think might be answered, and we'll have the totality of the presentation, then we can ask some questions.
So with this, again, this is a individual student. I think what's interesting to note here, when you look at the average logs per day, this was a 5th grader that needed some extra support, and by January we had wrapped around him and identified support people and behavior plans, and you can see that the number of logs virtually disappeared. So I think that that's really telling and helpful for our staff. And once we are able to now pull out location and time of day, again, when we look at an individual student, I think that's going to be really helpful in determining what is behind that behavior, what's going on, and how can we help correct it. We have had trainings for staff and students. At the beginning of the year, we had Charlie Appelstein, who educated our staff on trauma-informed approach with students. We had Katie Greer. She did presentations for each of our grade level students on digital safety, and then did a nighttime presentation for our community. We had staff training with Janine Richards, who did classroom interventions to support trauma-aware neuroscience training for staff. And then myself and Joe Dion did PowerSchool plug-in training for our staff. Coming up, as the kids already said, we have Lieutenant Kinsman of the Portsmouth PD Internet Safety presentation, or he is the commander of the New Hampshire Internet Crimes Against Task Force. And he's doing a presentation for our 7th and 8th graders on internet safety. And that is going to be brought to us by our school resource officer, Officer Winter, and him being a part of this wraparound team, and us having conversations every week about what our kids need. That brings a presentation like this to our community. So really awesome. So we take a proactive approach to student behavior. So some things that I would classify as tier 1 supports and things that we're doing across the board. That's a picture right there of our opening day, where we had all the kids come in and circle up from the very first day. So we started with assembly that was a circle. We created the Leadership Council of Athletics, which isn't just about supporting sports teams, but they supported the musical, they supported the winter band and chorus performance. So they're really looking at what it means to be a Hawk, and how do we be good people and role models for our school. We're reimagining the role of the school counselor. When I got here, I was shocked to learn that our school counselors were involved in discipline. That is not their role. They should be therapeutic, and they are no longer a part of that. We do school-wide service projects, community service projects, so many that it took until this past month to roll out the Crayon Initiative that I told you all about in August, because we were just looking for the right time because there was already so many lined up. We have greater collaboration with our central school. There are so many projects and opportunities that our teachers are bringing our students to the central school, and what a great way to form connections and to help our students feel like they're impactful. We are doing staff training, so now my school MTSS committee is looking at the discipline data from our behavior plugin. We're identifying areas where we can focus, and then I have some staff coming into the staff meetings and training our teachers on classroom management strategies. So the first one we're going to tackle is electronic devices, and the idea of work avoidance with that. And we're going to do some training on classroom management strategies with respect to that. And we, through our One School, One Book program, we are modeling empathy. So we're just really trying to be proactive in teaching our children to be good, productive members of society. So, what's next? So our MTSS committee is going to continue to develop data protocols, ways that we can use this information and help our discipline. We are going to continue training on supporting our students within the classroom, so that tier 1 support. I want to enhance our WIN room supports through gaining stakeholder input and create that really into a program. We want to enhance student voice in the restorative practice, right? So when a student is, in trouble for something, I want the student to be more involved in how do they repair that harm. Still continue to build those relationships with the families and communities. And then I think an area of growth is to really look at our attendance interventions. We want our kids in school. And that's the first thing is getting them here through the doors. And so that's not been an area that I've really been able to tackle in the way that I'd like to, outside of providing extra academic supports when they return. So I think we need to work on that. And this just here is a picture of our ABC Club doing a presentation on bullying in another classroom. So just sharing that. And that is my entire presentation, and I'm sure that you all have questions. So what do you got for me?
All right, I'll go first. So thank you, because this is big and there's a lot, and I know that. So if anything I'm going to say comes off negative, just know that I appreciate you.
Okay, I'll buckle up for that one. Go ahead.
It's not negative.
No,
I
go
just
ahead.
have questions. I guess just looking at the WIN model, we'll start there. When I saw that slide of the WIN room, my first thought is it's just like an in-school suspension room, and I guess I'm wondering, when kids are there, it's great they're doing a project, they're trying to be reflective, but I feel like if they're there, there's other things that we're missing that got them there, and I'm wondering how that's being addressed, because I don't think one day of a reflection is, I don't know, solving a problem.
No, it
or
certainly
being super
isn't.
meaningful.
I like to refer to it as in-school support, because that's what it is, right? And taking a student out of the classroom is a last resort, right? I want the kids in the classroom. So I'm going to start there. But when we have a situation where it warrants a student to be removed for whatever reason that might be, we're looking at that student in the totality, right? We're wrapping around that student with counseling and support services and what is causing these behaviors. So while that is a result of a particular behavior, that doesn't solve the problem, you're right. So it's a process that we work as a team to try to support. I don't know that I answered your question, but it's like it depends on the situation.
And I'd rather have them in school than out of school. So
Agreed,
that's-
100%.
I'm there.
Mhm.
I guess as far as like restorative practices, are there other things you're utilizing besides like letter writing and apology letters? Like, are they doing circles? Like, what else is happening? 'Cause I know the central school, I thought everyone was trained in circles, and I don't know how much they're really using that there, but I know that can be done at the middle school. I don't know what you guys do.
Yeah.
But I'm not hearing anything about, I guess, that.
Yeah, to add to that, on one hand, the restorative practices were alive and well at middle school, then here for what's next, your goal is to enhance student voice in restorative practice. So you could argue if student voice is not currently a part of restorative practice,
It's not restorative.
then it's not restorative. If two students have a conflict, for instance, and you're not doing that restorative circle to allow them to both see each other's perspectives on how that conflict occurred, then you're not doing the restorative practices.
So
does that make sense?
So we are, yeah. There would be a combination, and I wanna say to you, the word enhance is there, right? So there is student voice in this, but I think we can do better. I do, and we do have peer mediation. Sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's not, and I work with a family on that as well. And so we work as a team, right? I reach out to parents and we make a decision together if that's appropriate, because sometimes it's not. And it doesn't mean that we wouldn't have conversations and peer mediation, and then still have sometimes still have a consequence, because sometimes removal for a day in a reset or time to reflect is appropriate and important, right? So we have to look at each individual student and what is best for that student, what is best for the student who may be the victim, right? And what's best for our community.
Yeah, I was going to say sometimes moving them to a different room for a day so that classroom has the ability to reset, because if you put them right back in, that's going to aggravate the classes really more versus giving them time to reset before you do a restorative practice afterwards.
Yes, I guess the only thing I'm going to jump in with, because I've seen different models in different schools, if a kiddo's going there because something's happened and they're there to reset, I guess, is there a plan? Are we doing any kinds of plans with students, with a BCBA or a guidance counselor or a behavior person, where you're here, but we're coming up with a plan so this isn't happening again?
Yes. And you saw in a sample schedule that the student met with the behavior specialist, and sometimes that's appropriate, and they do work on a plan. Sometimes with any type of removal from the classroom, we then also have what we call a reentry meeting, where we invite the parent in. We have a lot of times the advisor, a school counselor, a support person, and we talk about all of that. What is that plan for success? What does that look like? What does the student need so that they don't find themselves in this situation again? How can we move forward from this situation? So we do that together as a team.
So I work with a lot of littles, so it might look a little different, but I've also seen it at a middle school level. But when they go to a WIN room, there's, I guess, an ongoing plan where maybe they need, like, not a true FBA behavior plan, but they need some kind of incentive plan or some kind of daily check-in. Like, are those things coming out?
Sometimes they do, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, a lot of times things like that come out of it.
Okay.
And also, let me say this too, it's not one day sometimes. It might be a half a day. Right. It might be that I take a student out of their flex or their UA. Not to say that UA isn't as important, I'm not saying that, but sometimes it's just a piece of a day where they have that time to write that reflection, and we don't remove them from core classes. So it really depends on the situation.
And I guess the other thing I would be looking for in a school, because I've seen different models, is when kids are having a hard time during the day, these rooms that I've seen are also a place they go and check in on the fly. It's not like you got a behavior referral. It's you're having a hard time, you're going there for a reset. And I feel like that's what we are not seeing.
And we are exploring the idea of calm areas and calm corners in classrooms. That was part of why Janine Richards came. We need to do training with staff so that can be used appropriately, where we put together lists of equipment and needs for that. And the people that are helping with the training at the staff meetings are going to be training on that piece as well. So that looks different in a 5th grade classroom than an 8th grade classroom too. So that is part of the plan. I should have added that to the what is next, actually.
And I hear that you're staffing this room. Is this true?
The WIN room?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we get someone else to staff the room so you're not?
Oh, you mean
there?
me personally?
Yeah.
No.
Like who's running the room?
No, I'm not. I'm not in the room like full time. But
Who is that
combination
person?
of support staff and professional staff. I have people that are doing it as a duty, trying to kind of schedule people throughout the day. But my goal, my first goal was to remove students from being in the office. That is not appropriate. It's not restorative. It is not beneficial. Work is not getting done. We are not doing that here.
It also causes further issues if the students are overhearing conversations that happen.
100%. Not appropriate.
I have one last question on the WIN room, just while it's. So while we're on the topic of the WIN room, I noticed you mentioned, you said the word sometimes. You meet with the behavior specialist to discuss the plan for reentry, the behavior plan moving forward. Is there a reason why it's just sometimes? Like if you are in that room, why is it not standard practice. You mapped it out in the plan that was like a sample plan. But why is that not standard practice to meet with a behavior specialist or some person to come up with a plan?
Well,
moving forward?
that plan might be coming from me. So it might not necessarily require the behavior interventionist. That might be something that comes from administration or working with school counseling on a plan. And it might be, as I said, it might be a part day, you know, for the example of the student who told somebody to go kill themselves, right? They did a suicide prevention, exercise. They presented it to me. The student said to me, flat out, I will never use those words again. I cannot believe that I said that. He doesn't need a plan. He hasn't said it since September. So it depends, yeah.
My only concern there is that the plan for behavior could be different person to person depending on who's managing the situation. Does that make sense? So, you know, your interpretation of what a solid plan is for a reentry may be different than a guidance counselor that's in the room or a behavior specialist or something like that. So I'm just looking for a way to achieve consistency.
We do this as a team. So it's not just coming from me or Miss Joseph or a school counselor. So when we do a reentry meeting, that's actually a team. And then we work together. So like Miss Joseph and I, for example, if we have students that have done something that requires removal from the classroom, whether that's in school or out of school, then we're having conversations together and we're looking at that consequence together and, you know, have it and like discussing it and coming up with a plan together. So everything we do here is as a team. And if a student is being removed from a class, they're like this. They are likely coming up on our weekly wraparound meeting where we talk about that with all of those people that I said that support, so we can develop whatever we need to ensure that the student isn't continually running into these situations.
And so kind of what some of the BCBA does is they might be with the student for a full day observing them in order to get data and understand how to come up with a more complicated process with students that have more significant needs.
But that's likely only in the most extreme.
And I wouldn't say extreme, I would say tricky, if that makes sense. You may have a student that has really minor behaviors, but they're super consistent, and the teacher is struggling with it, and nobody can find out an answer, and you have the BCBA come in who has so much research, so much experience, or can figure it out, then to come up with a plan. And that might not be weirdly, it is not a behavior issue, it is not a disciplinary issue, it's how to put the student in a place to succeed, whereas the BCBA is academic as well as behavioral, like it's multi-tiered, whereas you may have a student that blurts something out wrong that is highly offensive may go to the room. They don't need a BCBA for a full day and that kind of thing. So,
Rich, you've been really patient.
That's not usually used to describe me. So I was just going to say two things. So one is just speaking from experience, having a room similar to the Wynn room under the guise of something else. Just be very careful that it does not become a reinforcer for some kids.
Yep.
I see that all the time. And then the second piece is, you know, I think this is partially our fault as well. You know, from last year to this year, I think the community at large and then the board also, we projected this, we want to see consequences, we want to see, you know, students held accountable and that sort of thing. But I think we also need to see the positivity piece of it too, right? So like, whether you want to call it PBS, PBIS, you know, red, white, whatever you want to call it, positive reinforcement works. And I would encourage you and your team that as you go back and you look at the systems and the data collection, you find an element of positivity that you can also track so that you can see that growth over time. And I'm happy to share with you some resources that I have. I don't know if they'll be applicable, but happy to share them.
I love that. Thank you.
And that brings up a question that I was going to ask. It dovetails nicely into this. So we have the system that now tracks the types of behavior that are being reported, but we don't seem to have a tracking system for the interventions themselves, or whether all of the things that you just listed across 15 slides are working. Does that make sense? What specific interventions are causing bullying to decline, or causing peer conflicts to decline, or inappropriate school behavior, all of those different categories, what's working? Does that make sense? And I guess I would, whether that's you or behavior specialists that track that data, that would be the next challenge, is to identify what interventions you have and then apply those to the data to see what's causing that reduction.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, anecdotally now, we can say that when we have a lot of certain behaviors that we're dealing with, and October, and we're not seeing them anymore. But yes, as we are able to cull this data, then we can start to see if our consequences and interventions are stopping the behaviors from happening. And that's where we're going with this, because that's the whole point, right? So 100% I'm with you, and unfortunately, I don't have that data to just share with you at this moment.
The question would be how. So we have a platform to track the types of behavior cases, but how and what will be the plan to track the data of what's working? And I think
we can do that, because now that we have been able to classify the consequences appropriately, I will be able to pull out our suspension numbers, but I get a deep dive into each log entry, to be honest with you. I have to open one, I have to count the number by hand. So now that we're logging it in the right categories, I'll be able to pull those out. So I'll be able to see the actual numbers of suspension data, for example, suspension, detention, whatever you want to call it, and I'll be able to see how that's tracked over time much more efficiently.
I think you definitely have come a long way in 6 months, and I really appreciate you putting this together and in a place that you can learn from it and grow from it, and the staff can grow from it. Like, I do think you're making good progress.
Thank you.
It's not working.
There you go.
Sorry. So in the areas of staff support, so obviously a lot of work has been done here to support the students and guiding them. What is the plan for looking at the data to identify whether or not a teacher may need support in the form of additional classroom management, or just finding out that maybe they have a difficult classroom, or mentoring opportunities? How are you going to look at the data and help the staff?
So we have already been doing that. At the beginning of the year, when I identified that we were not tracking that at all, we instituted just using Google spreadsheets, and we were logging, recording where those referrals came from and trying to track how many. And we can do that with this as well. So now that I have a better system, we can sort of see where those referrals are coming from. I'm going to tell you, I thought that I might be able to see more than I could. It wasn't actually coming mostly from a specific person, when I started looking at it and deep diving into it. But now that we have that ability, if we're starting to see that, then we can, put the behavior specialist in a classroom, put our school counselors in a classroom if we need to, support that teacher in various different ways. So yeah, we can do that now with this even better than we were before.
And I'd like to add to that too. I have had the opportunity on a couple of different occasions to attend team meetings where our BCBA, Kelly Martinez, was meeting with teams to really kind of train them up on various behaviors. It's sort of like a kid-by-kid approach. And so I think that is a tool. Kelly has also done trainings, whole staff. In fact, they did one whole district at the end of last year. That is a real valuable tool that we have. So not only does the BCBA work with students and develop FBAs and behavior plans, but they're also providing that level of training. It's very kid-specific. And then the other piece I want to comment on the Win Room, and it's some conversations that Amy have had about this idea of the evolution. So this idea of students being sent to the office has been an issue that's been brought to my attention, I think, for the last 4 years in terms of privacy, disruption, attention seeking. It's a busy place. Some kids like to go there. And I think there's been different plans that have been discussed. This was the first year one was executed on. And I think by Amy's own admission, not perfect, but the conversations that we've had lately is from taking it from this room that really fit this like immediate need to like the development of a program that has a philosophy that is backed by research, that has stakeholder input. And we discussed a good example is look at what we're doing right now with the preschool study team. We're getting all the stakeholders to the table, looking at what's working, what's not. Like that's the evolution of taking a Win Room and making it a Win program. And even looking at, there are other schools that have similar models and they're very effective. Let's go to those schools, let's visit them. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done, but there's also a commitment to be able to do that, to get that evolution that's needed. And the input, I think, has been very valuable.
It takes time and experimentation, just like with the kids, like the staff has to try different things to get it to work. So I do think you're going in the right direction. And I would like, if it's possible, can you pull the numbers for how many bullying referrals or there's been, how many investigations and how many findings there's been over the previous years to see how we are doing this year in comparison to other years? All right.
Anything else?
I mean, I could go all night, but I won't do that to you. I want to congratulate you for what you have done so far. I know it's going to take a while to probably get where it needs to be because it's not been happening for a long time. So I guess the only thing I can ask that's left is what would you say needs to be an immediate improvement that you would like to see happen?
Immediate?
Or not immediate, but what would be the most pressing thing that you would like to see improved, I guess, with what we're doing or changed?
Oh, pressing.
Or the first thing you would, I guess, want to work on?
Well, just the fact that we have this data now, right? So, and what we're doing right now in the moment is identifying, and I think it goes back to what Mr. Poor had said, identifying these key areas where we're seeing behaviors and attacking them proactively. So that's really, that's some of the good work we're starting now that we have this data.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so when we talk about the behavior specialist, Kelly Martinez, she is going to be providing training at tomorrow's staff meeting directly about this. So we now have this data to say across the grade levels, we're seeing electronic device infractions. Now, how do we support our teachers? So that's like immediately we're starting that, yeah.
Board members, any more questions? Okay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to our 2025-26 recalculated operating budget with Mr. Dowd.
Thank you very much. We reviewed at the last meeting some areas for focus on removing expense items from the 25-26 budget to bring our bottom line number in line with the default budget, which is the operating budget for the current year. You have a budget memorandum from Mr. Thompson showing where those areas are. The total difference between the operating budget as proposed, which failed, and the default budget, which is now the operating budget, is $557,807. And so those line items are detailed as to where we finally ended up on them. I have two reports that follow that. One report is behind a cover sheet that gives a little bit of an explanation between Sullivan v. Town of Hampton, which I'll explain in just a few moments. The two reports are with the changes that are identified in Mr. Thompson's memorandum compared to our current year budget with the delta, compared to current year to date, 24 budget, 24 actual, and 23 actual for comparative purposes to see where we end up. There's another report behind that, however, which shows our 2026 requested budget plus warrant articles. The next column showing the school board adjustments, which were the removals or the decreases in expenditures, as well as final column showing the 26 proposed adopted budget if the board sees fit. The board's authority to reallocate a default budget is found under the case of Sullivan v. Town of Hampton, Board of Selectmen. And in that case, the operating budget fails and the default budget becomes the operating budget, as it is the case this year. The school board may make a one-time reallocation of those funds. This premise, this idea, this notion relies on the fact that the default budget is a calculated number based on our current year operating budget with certain adjustments as are legally required. But the recognition that that budget does not meet our current year needs. And so based on that, you're allowed to do a reallocation of the budget. And so one of the easiest ways to do that is to take our proposed recommended budget and simply subtract out the difference, the $557,907. Sorry, $557,807. So those changes are in there. Total budget, the default budget base is $37,585,688. Warrant Article 3, which was the HESPA collective bargaining agreement, $99,001. Warrant Article 4 is the teacher's contract, which was $399,626. And we have a capital reserve, $150,000 that was approved as part of Warrant Article 6. That gives us a total budget of $38,234,315. And so your budget reports reflect those, the changes that are outlined in the memorandum. We can go through them if you'd like. If you have any questions, I know that there have been some solicitation by the superintendent of school board priorities and some areas for cut, and this is where we ended up. And I believe you have had a chance to take a look at some of these at our last meeting, actually more than these. We whittled down, and this is where we ended up. I can discuss those changes.
Yeah, so.
Sorry?
Yeah,
you good? Okay.
board members, just to kind of make sense of what you have in front of you, if you pull up the two memos, there's one from March 25th, 2025, and then one from April 8th with the different budget reduction focus areas, and there were some changes made between March 25th and the April 8th document. So if you have questions around those, or perhaps Jeff or Bob can speak to what is different in the document, and maybe that will generate questions or comments.
And generally speaking, so the March 25th, you may recall, we had brought to the board in excess of the $557,000. That way we could get feedback from the board so that then we could come back to this meeting. Based upon that feedback, I also got feedback from our leadership team. We've landed, this is the amount that is reflected in the recalculated budget that Mr. Dowd has presented. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'm happy to review for the public, if it would be helpful, the items, if you'd like, where we end up finally with those final.
Sure, I think for the board's benefit, it would be helpful to hear basically what's different between the two documents. I know we can look at them, but maybe the reasoning around those decisions that were made.
Yeah, take a look. So I'm going to go through, why don't I do this? Why don't I read the list, and we will compare it to what we had previously.
Perfect.
And I'll do that as follows.
Great.
So as part of those cuts, middle school stage replacement, $15,000. That is going to be a cut. We had proposed cutting the late bus at HMS, $10,680. That is not part of these cuts. Pinkerton late bus cut of $21,161 will be part of these cuts. The middle school oil tank replacement, $213,840 will be part of these cuts. We had proposed 7th and 8th grade literature books for $7,772. Those will not be part of these cuts. We had proposed administrative salary cuts of $10,000. $6,000 will be part of these cuts. Conferences will be reduced by $5,400. Gumdrop cases for devices. We had proposed $6,650. That covered both our preschool and our next tranche of replacement cycle for each school. That won't be $66.50 was proposed. $36.50 will be the amount that will be removed. We had turnover savings of $30,000. Those stay in the final set of cuts. HMS professional staff member, $72,800. That's been proposed, and that will stay in the final proposed cuts. HCS admin assistant, $54,000. That will be part of these cuts. We had proposed a HCS staff member of $24,000, an HMS support staff member of $24,000. Those will not be part of these cuts. We had proposed the HCS student services coordinator of $96,000, and that will be part of these cuts. That's not a cut. That will be shifted back. Well, that's in the grant and will remain in the grant. But that's listed as a cut here. That's what it is effectively on the budget. Special education contracted services, we had proposed $19,500. In the end, we'll cut $13,708. Preschool supplies, $1,100. We had proposed $5,000 for HCS furniture. Those will not be part of the final cuts. $3,000 for HCS field trips will not be part of the final cuts. I believe that we had some feedback from the board on the Summer Learning Academy costs, and if that model does move forward, it'll be more of a pay-to-play type model with parent and guardian support. That cut is $25,148, which will be part of the proposed cuts tonight.
Great. And Bob or Jeff, could you kind of talk about the logic around originally proposing the HMS late bus, but then deciding to keep it?
Yeah, so the decision to remove it was based upon this year's ridership. So there are a small number of students that are utilizing it. And in doing an analysis of utilization, we could increase our efficiency around the scheduling of some of our after-school programs that would increase ridership. So that was a driving factor. And really a theme of, okay, so how do we go from proposed list to final list was going through each of these items and what is the, do no harm, right? What is the least amount of impact to student learning? And if we had significant ridership next year, the need for ridership, and we cut it, so I'd rather keep it in. If we don't need it, we could reallocate those funds. We're already cutting the Pinkerton Light Bus. And then the other piece too is anything that we cut that has the word transportation in it makes me a little nervous just because of some of the expenses that we've incurred more around special education with our transportation. It's not really prudent for us to cut that. And I also, I want to make the board aware that, when we move into next year's, budget, there will be decisions that need to be made that some of the items that are on here could become a priority. And, I'll give you the example of the lawnmower. We cut the lawnmower last year. Well, we need a lawnmower, so we're going to have to purchase that. So this is a commitment at this time that can be revisited either through administrative action or depending also by board action as well. So you're not locked in if at a future time priorities change, and they do, that a different decision can be made.
And to make sure that the answer is crystal clear, the middle school late bus started because we're able to run certain programs under grants that were given after post-COVID. The bus was really aligned to those programs, and we would like to realign that bus service for the upcoming year to match more of the programs that we're running in the district, as opposed to just those few that we had initially funded with grant funding and that sort of thing. So I'm hearing a lot of our students say, well, I'm not able to get the late bus, it doesn't really align. So if we have to adjust some times and make it more available, maybe to some athletes after practice and that sort of thing, it'll be much better utilized. It's utilized as it is, but that utilization can go up and be a much greater service to our students, families.
Board members, any other questions or comments around the proposed default budget? Okay, I'll just personally say I'm happy to hear that, you know, we did the exercise of having this be as limited on student impact as we possibly can. I appreciate both of you kind of erring on that side when you went through these cuts of trying to minimize the impact. So if there are no other questions or comments, I would make a motion to accept the proposed adopted budget.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? All approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bob Thompson is going to tell us about the Pinkerton Late Start Committee survey.
Great. So as board members may be aware, and this actually predates, I think, the tenure of some of you, back in the fall of 2023, Pinkerton Academy formed a school start time committee. The goal was to explore a new start time for Pinkerton based upon a significant amount of research that would suggest that a later start time would be more beneficial to student achievement and to student wellness. So we have spent the last 2 years looking at this at all angles. There is a tremendous amount of complexity around start time and a lot of moving pieces. And some of this was driven by the fact that here in Hampstead, our first students hop on the bus at 6:10. That's really early. In Hooksett, they hop on the bus at 5:45 in the morning. That's pretty early. So we do recognize that is a sacrifice that our high school kids are making. However, there is a level of complexity because a change in Pinkerton start time will have implications for us around start times, busing, and other considerations. So Pinkerton did administer a survey to their families. That's the survey that you see in front of you. And they've collected that data. And as we continue to work through different scenarios, the start time committee was looking to see if the board, and they would like this to be driven by the board, if there would be interest in the board of sending out a similar community survey to gauge the interest of the Hampstead community. I'm going back to them in 2 weeks for our next meeting, and I'm going to bring whatever feedback you provide me to that group. And so just exploring the sort of options here, we could use the generic survey that's been provided. We could decide that we would like to take a crack at our own survey, and might suggest that maybe there's a representative or liaison that works with the administration to develop what that survey might look like. I would also say that we should have some consideration about the time of year that we send it out, because I think when we send out a survey, we need to make sure that we've done a lot of explaining the intention, the purpose, because we're really looking at if there were to be a change, the change at the earliest would be for the 26-27 school year. So when you send out a survey about changing the start time, that can cause some anxiety. So that's part one of the conversation. And then the other part too is there is a conversation at Pinkerton around the idea, it's really just a concept, of what if Pinkerton had their own buses? So instead of us running, we have 3 bus times. We run for high school, middle school, and elementary. If Hampstead School District was just responsible for elementary and middle, and Pinkerton were to either run their own buses, or we would enter into sort of a consortium with the other sending towns to run buses. I would just caution us, like, we do have a contract with a bus company. So we want to be careful that, the conversation that we're having is really sort of high level and more conceptual than anything else. So I put that out there for the board's consideration. I will answer any questions that you might have.
So board members, what are your thoughts on number one, sending a survey at all? Number two would be, would you propose using this form that you see here, or would you propose making our own? Personally, I see this as very wordy, very kind of confusing, and feel like people will look at it and be like, I don't want to read this. So if we are to send out a survey, my personal opinion is that we create our own that is far more pared down and easy to interpret.
Sounds like Andy is volunteering to help develop the new survey.
I will unofficially volunteer.
And I think at the top, in very big, bold writing, this is not for the coming school year.
Yeah.
I think something to do too is if you do a video that goes along with it that explains the survey that people can watch or listen to, and then do the survey afterwards might be helpful.
That seems like a great task to delegate to our director of curriculum. Yeah, no, we can certainly try to get it out through multiple means, because I do agree, and I can tell you, like, this is a very complex thing, because you have to think all of the surrounding, the sending towns are having conversations with their school boards. There are some school boards that have some very strong feelings on both sides of this. So I think being deliberate, transparent, as we typically are, I think would be beneficial.
And, just to make this perfectly clear of what this might mean to, as far as impacting our schools, it would mean, later start times at the central school, potentially later start times at the middle school. So it's this ripple effect of all of these things kind of cascading together. So the impact is quite large, and obviously, as Bob just mentioned, it impacts every sending town. So definitely something we want to be careful in our decisions with, and I think there's no harm in sending out the survey. If we get 3 responses, then that's what we got. If we get a ton of feedback, then that will hopefully tell us what direction to go in.
I think you just said that this could result in a later start time for HMS and HCS. It would, if Pinkerton started later, it could result in a later start time, but if Pinkerton was able to do a cooperative bus service?
Oh, if they were able to incorporate the bus service, just with the later start time. That was my understanding anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it could. There's so many different things on the table, because you could also look at like adjusting some of the start times. There could be a scenario where elementary school started earlier, or maybe middle school started later. There could be a scenario in which we consolidated elementary and middle school runs so that they started at the same time with you need to have a buffer in there for a little bit of carpool time. I can tell you the parents I've talked to whose children, elementary age children, ride the bus, some of them find that wildly unpopular. I don't think that there is a solution out there that will not yield some feedback for the board. So we just want to be mindful that, we got to sort of throw out all of the different options when we put the survey out.
Yeah. And again, I think just the ease of the use in the form will be the most critical thing. If people are actually going to fill it out, we have to make it really easy access. So, all right. Board members, any other questions or comments around this?
I really like the idea of consortiums and possible other options that will make us have more competition for transportation and possibly make costs most effective.
And you actually raise a good point, Carl. And again, we're really, really talking high level, but I do have to say, the idea of a consortium is something to explore. But what I really want to make sure we do, if that were to be the case, some of the people that drive for us have driven for us for decades. They are the fabric of our school community. And so there could be some non-negotiables around we want to keep those people, you know, we have such good relationships with them.
Absolutely.
So that just has to be noted that, you know, we're a people institution.
If they've driven them for 7 years, we wanted them to come back for the 8th year. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fantastic point. All right, moving on to our 2024-2025 Superintendent Evaluation Progress Report. So in accordance with CBI-R, the board was provided with compiled responses from the superintendent's direct reports as well as the superintendent's self-evaluation. The evaluations were completed by the board, by each board member, and that was all gathered and provided for the board's review prior to tonight's meeting. From here, the board will select a non-public meeting on May 13th, and then we'll also go into non-public on May 27th to continue with the process for this evaluation of the superintendent. So I look forward to those meetings. Any questions or comments around that? Okay, I am, for this next one with the board liaison assignments, I am going to recommend that we table this. Meeting's running long, and this is a really important topic that I think deserves our attention. So if we can table this to our next meeting, that would be great. All right, board members, in your packets, we have all of our policies for second reading. Those policies being IHCD, Advanced Coursework, Advanced Placement Courses, LEB, Advanced Coursework and Advanced Placement Courses, GBK, Staff Complaints and Grievances, JRA, Student Education Records and Information, ACAC, Title IX, Sexual Harassment Policy, BCB, Board Member Conflict of Interest, the DO Food Service Meal Account Balances, EFAA School Lunch Program Meal Charges, and IHBCA Pregnant Students. Bob, if I remember correctly, no changes to these policies were made between the first and second readings.
No changes, that is correct. Mr. Dowd has.
It was one to EFAA, page 6 of 7, to incorporate a more current contemporary USDA non-discrimination statement.
Oh, thank you.
It was already there in part, so this just expands upon what was already there. And that section, brief section, reads in accordance with the federal civil rights law and U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, civil rights regulations and policies. This institution is prohibited from discriminating on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, including gender identity and sexual orientation, disability, age, or reprisal or retaliation for prior civil rights activity. And that last portion of the sentence is their more current and contemporary language. There is a little bit more as well procedurally, but substantively that's the change.
And that's in line with what current New Hampshire policy and practice is?
Sorry?
That's in line with what current New Hampshire policy and practice is?
It's ironic. It's in line with USDA
Okay.
and New Hampshire DOE policy in practice.
Okay.
But I don't think that the sample policy has adopted that yet.
Okay.
So we're a little ahead of the sample policy.
All right. But we will be able to get our lunches.
That way?
We'll be able to get our lunches with this.
That's right, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And our funding.
I would like to make a motion to accept IHCD, LEB, GBK, JRA, ACAC, BCB, DO, that's the shortest one, EFAA and IHBCA as written in the second policy reading.
So moved. Any questions or comments? All approved. Okay, moving on to the 25-26 professional staff renominations.
All right, so I present for the board's consideration the list of annual renominations for both the central school and the middle school. And the authority of the board to approve the superintendent's renominations is derived from RSA 189.14, which essentially is anyone who holds a professional standards certificate. The board on an annual basis will take action on the renomination list. I would make the board aware that if there were any questions regarding any information, that be advised that those questions take place in a non-public session.
So at this point, I'll make a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A3 2C. Matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the public body itself, unless such person requests an open meeting.
Second.
All approved.
Excuse me, Chairman, can I take roll call vote for this
Yes,
one?
thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Denton? Dr. Hebner?
Yes.
Mr. Cabarrus?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer? And Dr. Poor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And
we will come back out, and the board will be taking action. Is that what you're going to say, Dr. Hubner?
that's exactly what I was going to say.
We'll be taking action on the renomination list.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Welcome back, everyone. We are coming out of non-public at 9:40 p.m. So after discussion here, I will make a motion to accept the 2025-2026 renomination list as proposed. Any other questions or comments?
I just want to say, because you guys are making fun of me, we have 1,100 years of experience. We literally have over a millennium of experience in this district, which I find really, really cool. They keep laughing at me. So our average teacher has 14 years of experience, which I think is awesome. I'm so glad our teachers stay, and I hope that our teachers who are offered remain. And if we have a good teacher appreciation week, maybe that'll help.
Absolutely. And I know that they appreciate that type of acknowledgement, Dr. Hubner.
All right. All approved.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to board comments and correspondence. Board members, anything to share? I don't have anything either. Okay, moving on to the personnel report.
Just for correspondence, I think we should consider doing a letter to our state representatives about the inclusion into, or the possible law that's being made that's going to put a budget cap on school districts, basically removing local control. I think perfect example of local control was the fact that we didn't get our budget this year, and the taxpayers made that decision. I don't think that should be taken away from the local district and put at the state level.
I would agree with that. Board members, any other feelings around drafting a letter to our representatives around the budget cap bill? Okay. Excellent. Project. Okay.
And just to be clear, if the board would like, I don't mind. I talked to Mr. Dowd because I anticipated with a lot of the attention around that specific issue, Mr. Dowd and I thought maybe we could collaborate on a draft that we could give the board for your consideration.
We would greatly appreciate that.
Right. And I also wanted to note too, actually I'll save it for the superintendent report regarding April 11th, which is the NHSBA webinar that we're going to some members of the board are going to participate in.
Okay, moving on to the personnel report.
All right, for the board's consideration, I have 3 resignations that I'd like to bring forward. The first is for Kayla Dustin, who is an HCS elementary classroom teacher. Stephanie Pomicado, who is an HCS board certified behavior analyst. And Brett Branscombe, who is the HMS music and choral teacher.
Board members, any questions or comments around these resignations?
I'd just like to say that I appreciate them working for the district and serving us.
I do as well. At this point, I will make a motion to accept these 3 resignations for Kayla Dustin, Stephanie Pomicado, and Brett Branscombe. Any other questions or comments? All approved. All right, moving on to the superintendent's report.
All right, real quickly, I know that we've run over time. I just wanted to, for the board's information, I did receive a check for $120 as a donation to the Hampstead Middle School for the end of the year semi-formal dance. Thank you, Denise, for helping to facilitate that. That's from Get On Board, and that is a local company here in town who held a fundraiser, and a portion of the proceeds from that evening went to help support the semi-formal. On that topic, we have an annual semi-formal dance. It is being reimagined this year, and I think Principal Bernard has talked about that, but I do appreciate we've had some local companies that have offered their donations. We have parents that are reaching out to help organize that event. So it will return to the middle school where it once was held. So we're excited to see what that looks like. I had also mentioned, so we have on this Friday, the New Hampshire School Boards Association is holding a webinar, which is really a legislative overview. And on what we call crossover day. So bills that have been in the House that have been approved will now move over to the Senate. Bills that are in the Senate will now move over to the House. And this is really, every day that goes by, we're getting closer and closer. What's coming into clear vision when we look at the over 200 bills that were specific to have some impact on education, the list is shrinking. And so crossover gives you us a good opportunity to see what areas of focus there might be. And so there will be representatives from the board. I have representatives from the teachers who are giving up their lunch and plan period to attend. And I've also extended the invitation to members of the community as well as district administration. Just so, let's hear what's out there, and then let's have a conversation. With the spirit of that conversation is, how do we get the word out and share information with our community, which we have an obligation to do. And with that being said, I don't know if I wanted to turn it over to Mr. Dowd, who wanted to just highlight one specific piece of legislation relative to Health Trust.
Yes, and it is Senate Bill, being proposed Senate Bill 297, which impacts risk pools throughout the state. There aren't actually that many of them. Health Trust is considered a risk pool. We essentially use Health Trust as a pass-through to pay our claims on let's say a self-insured basis, with the exception that they're a risk pool, so we can have our rates set and have a commitment that that's the rate that we'll pay, and that's it. I could speculate as to the cause of the bill being brought forward, but essentially it would take the current risk pool model that Health Trust operates under, and it would shift that a lot. And let me just explain that Health Trust has typically has significant reserves on hand, and those reserves dipped substantially after COVID for a number of reasons, return of surplus, a couple of years that were a little bit heavier than normal. Their reserve is in the $35 million range. Estimated this year, it's been as high as $128 million, and it went from 128. They had returned surplus of $38.2 million in 2021, dropped down to $64 million in 22, 23. It dropped down to $23 million. So they were very low at a point. They have a plan in place to restore their capital. I believe about 5% of our premiums are dedicated to restoration of capital. So when you actually see like a 3.9% increase in insurance, realistically, that's actually a net, it's a decline. But because we have the 5% to build that capital, that's what that rate looks like. So their capital reserve is there to absorb additional or unexpected claims. It ensures that we don't have to come out of pocket on any of these. What we need as a district is stability, consistency, consistent cash flow. What this bill would propose to do would be to, in citing their less than optimal capital reserve funding, that they would require districts, they would hold a lower capital reserve amount. The district itself would be required to hold an amount on hand. At this point, I'm not sure how we do that. I don't have an ability to sit on cash. That's not what we do. Right. We appropriate it and we spend it as needed. If we don't spend it, we give it back to the taxpayers. We have a capital reserve fund where those funds are raised by taxpayers and put into that fund that's a standing fund and all of that. I have no idea how we would do this. We'd have to set up maybe a reserve fund.
A separate
reserve fund. Yep. And if under their bill, if the reserves dropped below a certain threshold, whatever that threshold is, and the actuarial valuations are really all over the place. It can be 100 million, 150 million, virtually by the same standard. If it fell below that standard, we would have to cough up on demand those funds to restore.
What's the motive? What are they trying to accomplish with changing it and putting the burden on school districts?
Yeah, and so let me there's one more piece, and I think that the question might be a little bit better suited that way. Right now, we contribute to that risk pool, and that's our limit of liability. Under this model, not only would we have to have those reserves on hand to satisfy those capital requirements, but, and I don't know how this would work, but if that plan ran at a loss, that now becomes our liability. This doesn't mean our people are running a loss. This means that we're responsible for the entire pool, right? The entire state of liability, which we just don't have. So that's a lot being put on our taxpayers locally. It's a lot being put on in terms of the on-call restoration of reserves. So we can get a capital call and they say, hey, we need money and we have to find it. It's a burden having to maintain that money locally, having to set up a fund to do that. I think that there's a view perhaps, and this is just mere speculation and conjecture on my part, that there's a view that health plans that are under school districts and municipalities in the state are expensive. There have been some thoughts and some rumors and some discussion out there that Health Trust does not have an ability to shed, to get rid of older, less efficient plans, which they're doing this year. Right? June, and this has been something that's been in the works for a couple of years. Yeah. So there's a narrative out there that a number of things can't happen under Health Trust, and so I think that there is an effort to try and
make it happen at the state level.
No, there's an effort to dismantle Health Trust in its entirety.
So, and the alternative would be that you leave Health Trust and you would have to pick up an insurance provider like Blue Cross or something else?
Correct, and it's not that simple because we go through Health Trust for Anthem, for our Delta Dental, for a number of other programs and plans. So
but if enough districts leave Health Trust, then Health Trust collapses and everybody gets driven out?
Sorry?
If enough people leave Health Trust, eventually Health Trust collapses because the pool is not big enough, and then everybody has to go out into privatized insurance.
Everyone's on their own finding.
Yeah, and I mean there are other districts that have left Health Trust this year because of the uncertainty of what's going on in Health Trust.
Is it what, Carl?
Because of the uncertainty around Health Trust.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see it as an uncertain situation, and I'm told that it's not quite that easy to leave. I don't know if they've had to contribute to any capital restoration obligations that they have, so it can be expensive to leave as well. But I know that that's been out there. It's indisputable that they've experienced significant losses, and they're significantly lower in capital reserves than anyone's comfortable with. However, they have the benefit of good cash flows first, and they have the benefit of really only going out about a year, right? And then you're doing a rate reset. Yeah. And so you have the time to get caught up.
Right.
And it's also, they are looking out for the interests of the people who are contributing to the fund. So in theory, it's basically like a co-op versus a for-profit.
Correct, yeah. That's essentially it. The amount of resources that have been dedicated to this, actuarial studies, which don't appear to be entirely factual and correct in nature, but thoroughly professional, the amount of verbiage that has been added to existing bills so that it bypasses that process of review and analysis doesn't just come out of nowhere. So it seems like there should have been a bill to do this originally, but that would have gone through committee, that would have taken too long, and it would have been viewed critically. So instead it was added, in a sense, it didn't get the fair shake that it needed, or that it needs. And to me, it seems like this is another way to attack government through the dismantling of outfits like Health Trust. The problem is that in doing so, and I get it, and I get that no one likes how expensive things are, we still have obligations under our collective bargaining agreement to offer the plans that we offer. Right. We have to go through Anthem Direct to do that, that's fine. But under the current scenario and the current bill that's being proposed, our district finances are at significant risk. If we ended up getting called due to some massive loss under a new model that exceeded our reserves, we would either have to dip into our own or call a special meeting and raise more money.
Yep.
That's the exact thing that really governmental, quasi-governmental agencies should not be doing. We owe it to our taxpayers and to our employees and everyone in the district to have that consistent, stable funding methodology, to be able to ensure we know what our liabilities are. We have liabilities, we definitely do, but we really have to know what they are. And the liabilities that we have are generated by the decisions of our district, of our taxpayers, and of our board, not from the risk pool of another district or another municipality that we may be on the hook for. So it really is so destructive that it will change fundamentally the risk pool structure, and it is not really compatible with what we're looking.
It will dismantle the risk pool structure, essentially.
Yeah. Yep. And so what will end up happening is, if we have to go either direct through an Anthem, or we may end up going through a new form of Health Trust, a new iteration of Health Trust. It may just reform itself, which it probably could do. If it did that, we would then have to have reserves on our end. We would then be open to liability of other districts. If we went directly through Anthem, we no longer have the benefit of having that reserve out there, right? So every time that insurance gets priced, it's going to get priced for a worst case scenario. They're going to say, well, we don't have the ability to maintain that capital reserve. We're going to price it the way that we think that it's going to be to the maximum exposure. And we don't share in that. That just goes to profit for an insurance company.
A question.
Sorry. Did Health Trust, I'm getting this from something, but did they vote to end coverages effective Health Trust themselves already? Is that kind of what you were talking about earlier?
No. No, they didn't vote to end coverage. They voted to cease to operate.
Okay.
So they voted to shut them. If this bill passes,
then they're shut down.
Then,
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's an orderly wind down or not. I don't know how that works. Based on the bill, it seems to be changing a little bit. But yes, they have voted to, if this bill passes, they voted to wind down operations. They may reform, but the reason for that is that the risk pool scenario under which they operate is not available under the current legislation. As I've indicated, I think that this is a pure and direct attempt to shut down Health Trust. And this is supported by the idea that there is a significant amount of misinformation, disinformation that would not be present if this were more of a legitimate concern type bill. It's not a legitimate concern bill. I wouldn't speculate. I don't know which way this is going to go, but certainly it's very important for our representatives to know that this is going to result in significant exposure. I don't know why in the world we would work so hard to protect our liability for the state to go and shove that back onto the districts. It just doesn't make sense, in addition to all of the other local funding that we have to come up with. Why would you ever do that?
Well, it's privatization. And then privatization and the theory that competitiveness will benefit long-term.
Profitability.
Yeah, so I think this is a great conversation for us to have. I do want to be mindful of the time. I do know that the board's going to go into a non-public. Yep. And I think that if the board members had questions about this, and Mr. Dow clearly has done his homework, so be willing to collect those questions. We can answer them individually, maybe bring them back. I also think our April 11th NHSBA webinar is where there's representatives from the board. Great. Might be a good opportunity to do that. And we talk about maybe what our next action is in terms of getting information out about the legislation.
Question, how many board members are going to that?
Well, we can't have more than two.
I was going to say.
So right now, yeah,
okay.
we have two that are scheduled to attend. So, anything more than two would be a quorum, and that would be
correct. No accidental meetings.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a question? All right. At this time, I would like to move non-public under 91A3 E for consideration or negotiation of pending claims or litigation which has been threatened in writing or filed by or against the public body or any subdivision thereof or by or against any member thereof because of his or her membership in such public body until the claim or litigation has been fully adjudicated or otherwise settled. Any application filed for tax abatement pursuant to law with anybody or board shall constitute a threatened or filed litigation against any public body for the purposes of this subparagraph. And I don't think we expect to come out of non-public with anything.
Correct. Second.
Okay. Ms. Denton? Yes. Dr. Hubner?
Yes.
Mr. Cabarrus?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer? And Dr. Poor? Yes. Thank you.